So y'all just accused me of having my claws out. So we'll see how this show goes. It should be
Oh,
fun.
meow.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
Meow.
Michael and I did kind of have a little bit of a spat in the pre-show this morning. So
Spat is, I think that's an over dramatization there, Dan. It's
Bit of a stretch. It
oh,
was
I
a
don't know.
pretty-
I'm pretty sure I called you a bunch of
Yes.
bad names, and then you got on the show, and you're like, "F off." That's not true, and that's how I remember it going. Am I mistaken?
well, that's
Well, you got to be
that's
a
a
member
version.
to find out. That's the only way.
Yeah, I was
to
just
find
gonna
out.
say.
Now I need to go
if you're
rewatch.
not a member, go sign up to be a member, and you can rewatch. And you can see how it really went.
yes.
Is Michael Ryder is
Very
dead?
true.
Let's find out. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sidebar. We have
Hello.
a party of 5 again tonight,
Hi,
which is
friends.
excellent. Good to see all of you, and a topic that was kind of a product of all of us. I think. I don't think there's one person we can blame tonight on. I mean, we'll find a way to blame it on Bailey at the end, because that's what we always do.
Yes.
But beyond that, I don't know who's responsible for this. But bottom line, what we want to talk about tonight is how courts have kind of become so much of a safety net for our society. And if you think about the court that we watch, and the news that we see and everything else, it's kind of true. There's not a lot of the social safety nets in place. There's not a lot of the programs in place that could probably head off a lot of this stuff before it gets to court. And the courtroom has to all of a sudden be the entity that fixes people rather than establishing guilt or innocence and assigning a punishment if there's guilt. It's become more than that. And I will say, channel members, you know this story. For those of you who aren't channel members, I'm going to give you a kind of a watered down version of it a little bit. But as an example that I'm living real time at the moment, we have a family member who has had mental health issues for at least 20 years now, that long that we've been dealing with it. And this weekend, there was an incident involving this person where we had to finally get law enforcement involved to perhaps get her some help. And the incident allowed us to prompt this to see if it could be helped. But the system up until then has completely let us down, because every time that we've tried to have some kind of an intervention, we can't, because it was always she's not an immediate threat to herself or others, so there's nothing you can do about it unless she wants to voluntarily get help. So you have to then wait for something that's horrible or potentially horrible. Luckily this wasn't horrible, but it had the potential to be, and then work through the court systems to get the answers that you want. And the mental health thing is just one example. I'm sure we have a lot of others, but I think this is where we go tonight is, should the courtrooms be handling this stuff? Do we need better things, better processes in place to head some of this off before it gets to a courtroom? Is it even fair to the judge and his staff and the lawyers and everything else to have to deal with all the things they do that aren't law? And I think we'll just kind of see where this goes. Ashley, do you have any thoughts you'd like to kick us off with along these lines, other than what I just gave?
Yeah. So overall, I was thinking this through, and I was like, I can position this in different ways but I'll start with the conclusion first, because I think that makes the most sense. That the judicial system is overburdened by these supportive, what's supposed to be supportive functions. So we have drug court, we have veterans court, and we have mental illness that doesn't have anything really, that has supposed to have supporting functions to the court system, but they're either they're too underfunded, there isn't anything in place, and then the court is falling back on the court to handle that for defendants. I think most people that are convicted, not most people, I would say a lot of people that we see have some sort of addiction issue. They have a mental illness, or they have homelessness is also an issue. Social issues like that the court is not supplied to handle. They are never meant to handle deep-rooted social issues like these. And while before the community would step up and help prevent this from getting so far, we don't have those institutions in place. They're either underfunded or non-existing now. And yeah, that's pretty much my main point, is that not everybody's coming together for a cause. They're giving all of that to the court system to handle, but I think it's overburdening them, and they're being reactive instead of proactive, when I think we need a lot of more proactive measures in place to keep it from going this far.
I would
agree
very
with you,
much
Ashley.
agree.
Yeah.
Especially on the reactive, proactive. Dan, you bring up a good point about how the system lets us down, which had me thinking on this topic of like, what's the patterns that get these defendants in front of us? Anybody who's a subscriber of TCF, who's been here for 5 minutes, knows we watch a lot of court every week, and we see knuckleheads that come in here from time to time. But to me, as a social scientist, as somebody who's trained to study and look at things kind of in an interdisciplinary kind of way, where I kind of have to look at a thing, but I'm trained to like do this and do this and try to look at it from every angle. And what I noticed was, we got these guys coming in. What's really getting these young people in particular in front of a judge? What's going on here? And the first thing that I came up with was like postulated was like, to me, we have a pattern of those who just don't have a high school education. They're starting life off really not on a great foot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I looked up the data on that, and back in '79, these were probabilities. So these aren't hard facts. The probability of you being kind of caught up in the system was about 9% in 1979 if you did not have a high school degree, diploma. In '09, it's nearly 21%. So back then it was like 1 in 10 might get caught up in the system, and we'll see them on TCF. But now it's like 1 out of 5. If you don't even have a high school diploma, I mean, the odds of you getting caught up in the system. So that kind of was validated with me. But there's so many other elements that we can get into, but that's kind of where my brain was starting to fire.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wanted to have this discussion with you guys.
And like
I'll be honest, Bailey, if I may, real quick. Just you shocked me. I thought it would be more like 1 in 3.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
thought it'd be even worse. But sorry,
Yeah.
Ashley, you were going to say something.
No. I think kind of piggybacking of what Bailey is saying, the courts are taking on that burden, but a lot of it is society's failure to address these issues, like healthcare, education, and just social issues in general. So I think that does fall under education too. Education, I feel like there's supposed to be more support in schools to help children. Like I know there's a shortage of counselors, for instance, because I'm a psychology major. We learned those things. There's a shortage of needed help for these children that they might be able to turn their life around at that point, but they're just never reached out to. And yeah, that's my point on that.
So I was trained as an educator before I decided to take a hard right turn and go a completely different direction with my career. But when I think back to my time, in teacher training and the brief time I was in schools, this there's a burden on teachers too to be so much more than an educator. You have to end up, you're watching 21 faces in the crowd, and you have to be ready for 21 different social situations, 21 different, home lives, 21 different, breakfast, or what do they even have breakfast,
Wow.
all these different things that kind of build up. So, schools, God bless them, they're trying, but they're a burden in their own way right now too. And, we're seeing funding pulled in different directions. We're seeing people leaving, public schools to go to private schools, and thus sometimes taking those funding dollars that could be helping some of these programs with them to where they might not necessarily be needed. So yeah, schools, I agree. There's a whole can of worms we could open there, but I agree. Like, there's resources there that are available that aren't being utilized, or were available that are no longer available because of changes in our demographics, and even size of classes too. You go from being responsible to 21 faces to 41 faces. The kid's going to fall through the cracks.
That's a haunting analogy, Lindsay.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Without giving too much away about these, these classes I was in, I walk in that first day and there would be a stack this big of, individualized education plans because of these kids coming in with, different social issues, sometimes even having fetal alcohol syndrome, is coming in with all these issues and all these, parameters you have to put in place to get the kids through the day. And you try your hardest, but something falls through. It was heartbreaking, and it's one of the many reasons why I stand before you as a former teacher.
Yeah, and on the opposite end of the spectrum, Lindsay, I know you're talking about children. And I see adults on my end, and I see how uneducated they were growing up. Those people that did fall the cracks years later, trying to better themselves, and they're not able. They don't even know how the simplest things that they
moved through just to say they graduated, but did they really meet the benchmarks to,
or they didn't graduate,
or they didn't graduate?
Because of life happened. Things. So
I had a student who, the minute they turned 18, they were kind of cast out of their family home, and they were working the overnight shift at a facility near where they ended up living. They'd work from 11 to 7, and then they'd go to school from 8 to 4.
Wow.
How do you get that kid to care about Romeo and Juliet? When or I say that because of the particular curriculum I was teaching, but the point stands. Like, how do you get them to care about what's happening in the classroom when this is the end of their day? And meanwhile, the kid sitting next to them slept until the right before they got to go to school, and breakfast waiting.
And the schools don't have that community support like they once did. They used to have backing by parents. They don't even have that now. They don't have community support behind them. So they're kind of like judges in a way, or the court system's taking on that load that should be shared across society. So it's just very
I have another interesting load-bearing leg to share. My local newspaper posted an article yesterday about how the local public transit system is inevitably taking on its share of social support too, or maybe being put in a position to take on the social support that they really shouldn't be. So like most public transit systems throughout the country, they saw ridership drop during, kind of the shutdown era of the pandemic, and then really not rebound as a lot of companies, didn't fully reopen offices, or, people relocated outside of the city center and weren't coming in like they used to. So you saw the trains, the buses, the transit centers, the bus stop kind of become these ad hoc gathering places for folks who didn't have a place to go, or needed like a warm place to sit for a couple hours. And then the things that tend to come with these groups gathering, the perceived lack of safety, so our agency has actually come up with these transit agents who, they aren't a punitive force, but they can connect folks to outreach systems. They can connect them to the, the public safety system if that becomes something that's needed. But it just becomes a question of, why does a transit agency have to provide social support? Where does the city, have to step in? Where could other agencies in the community step in? And like they showed some text up there, like text report system shows, and the things that they're having to answer to. It's something that someone that takes on a customer service job at a public transit agency honestly should never have to deal with. So I know the topic of the call was supposed to be, how judges, but I think everywhere in society right now is taking on these burdens of trying to be social support, but not having really the proper
training
skills to do that.
Resources, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have thoughts, but I should let Michael get in on this discussion first. So what are your thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, what more can I add? Everybody's pretty much already sort of stolen my thunder in this, because this isn't just a court issue, right? I mean, this is a broad societal issue. This is one of those things where we have so many programs that are in so much desperate need of more resources, from child safety, and we see the incompetence that, sometimes the incompetence of some of these government agencies because A, they're short-staffed, B, there's legislative issues and political stuff and all that. But then there's all these other safety nets too that are being burdened because of changes in the economy and just overall the need. We've shut down, mental institutions, and so now we're burdening other areas, and so the courts are very limited on what they can even do now because of all these other programs that are already overburdened. What are they supposed to do? We watch a lot of these places, and in Texas, for example, they have these, all these different programs, but sometimes they're full.
Yeah.
And when programs are full, what do you do with somebody? I mean, you don't just want, obviously, some people just say, just put them in prison. That's where they belong. And, sometimes that's true. Sometimes prison is the place for people. Okay. There's just sometimes where that's the only place someone can go. But most of the time there are programs that can help people. And, and I think that's the problem that we have right now is, we have a big need for help, and again, not just in the courts, and we just don't necessarily have all the resources. And I think, we talked about this on the pre-show, Dan, and we've talked about this in the chat. And this is one of those things where all politics is local. Well, all of this stuff is local. I think that's where it has to start, is we have to really, within our communities, we have to build these programs. We have to have more advocates. We have to have more people, that are involved and engaged. And I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to start building this stuff.
Okay.
Let me back up. I'm getting kind of excited. My nerd is getting ahead of my words. So let me
I like
up.
that.
Oh,
that's a t-shirt.
Merch.
I'm going to write that down.
All right.
So I was looking at some of the reasons why young people about our age tend to, by ours, I mean Ashley, Lindsay, me. Sorry, Dan and Mike.
We're old.
I'm flattered you called me young, Bailey.
Who find ourselves in these situations. So there was this Boston study that was done that looked at a bunch of people who came out of prison within a year. And they asked them, hey, what are some issues that you might have faced in early childhood that you might have kind of landed you here? And so I wrote down the categories. The first one I'm going to rank from the top most reported to the least reported. Family drug use, 57%. Yeah. Hit by parent or parents. Witnessed death. Lost custody. In other words, their parents lost custody of them. That was reported at 40%. Family violence in the home. They were part of domestics. Below that was their parent had depression or suicidal issues. And at the very bottom, at a minor 16%, was sex abuse. So if you fall under any of these statistics, I mean, and then you add in that plus multiplier of maybe you didn't complete high school, my goodness, you're a stat.
Yeah.
And that worries me.
I'd like to be very controversial for a minute.
Please.
With
Or
something
sidebar.
that, quite honestly, in my mind, should not be controversial at all, and it wasn't up until about 5 minutes ago. But I will argue, and I will argue until the end of time, that everything that we're talking about here, how this agency has to step up to do this, and this one has to step up to do that, and teachers have to become this and that, and all these things. In my mind, it boils down to one underlying issue, and that is the complete and utter breakdown in Western society of the family. The fact that there is no good, stable family environment for our children to grow up in, that there isn't a two-parent home in so many cases now, that men have stopped being men and taking accountability for things is a big part of that. The fact that we have no-fault divorce, which makes it just easy to walk away rather than figuring out how to work things out. Now, obviously, abuse and things like that, that's different. But, you can get divorced cause. Well, that does nothing for a family unit. We've got all these things that break apart families and then put all of... There's one of two things that'll happen. It'll either go to Lindsay's situation, where all of these burdens get placed on teachers because they have to fill in for all these things that they should be getting in their home and they don't, which makes for malformed people. Or because their family's busted up, they'll go out to the streets and they'll get around the wrong people, which will make for malformed people. And to me, this is the root of all of it. And I know that a lot of people will yell and scream and disagree with me and all of this kind of stuff, but things worked for a long time for the most part for a reason, but now all of a sudden we have this situation where everybody's broken. And if you look at one of the biggest things that we have broken in our society since all of these people became insane, it's the family. We've busted the family.
Well,
Yeah, well,
and
what-
it's not good starts for people, and then they end up in these situations and everybody else is trying to step up and they're not trained for it. And oh, by the way, odds are that the teacher and the person at the mass transit and the lawyer and the judge and everybody else grew up in a similar situation, so they're broken, but at least they're trying to help, but they're broken anyways. And it's just this constant...
I don't disagree, Dan. I don't disagree. I think a stable home and a stable community around a child, whether
That's
that
right.
community is, a biological father, biological mother, adoptive parents, step parents, grandparents, stable adult figures in a child's life is, I think,
That's right.
paramount to making sure that they get off to a good start. Stable
And
folks
so many don't
around
have
them, accepting them, guiding them, moving them forward. I think that is the base piece that really a lot of kids are missing these days for a myriad of reasons. Their parents are incarcerated. The parents are having to work multiple jobs to make ends meet so that the kid can eat. Sometimes the kid still doesn't eat, even though the parent might be working 3 jobs. There's all these pieces in place, but I really feel like that is the key issue, is that there is a lack of community around our children to even get them off on the right foot.
I wonder if there's a different way to look at that. By the way, Dan, I don't think you said anything controversial, because you said I might sound controversial. I don't think you said anything controversial.
Yeah, we're on
I think you were commemorating Bailey's points, his stats he just said. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Lindsay, I mean, I think what we're kind of, and Mike, I think what we're talking about is like the communities thing is like, I don't mind a judge stepping in or a teacher stepping in, but it's become the rule, not the exception.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. I 100% agree.
Every teacher is expected not only to do just the resume stuff, the job description stuff, but it's like every Johnny and Jane out there has, you know, and so,
Yeah.
and then now judges are not only doing administrative work and having to be HR and payroll, and they have all this, and they have to maintain a team and their docket, and you know, they
Yeah.
have a real job. I know it seems
Yeah.
like they just throw a robe on and they just go out there and they say some cool stuff and
They check some
they go,
boxes.
no, they
Read a big
have
book and
they have a ton
Right.
of homework going for
Yeah.
them, but they have to come in, and you know, Judge Simpson is really good about this, about what's going on. Like, I don't want to treat the symptoms. I want to know what the cause is. Like, just level with me. And I think a lot of judges are really good about that, especially if they're going to be placing them on probation. Judge Boyd is excellent with this. Is there anything else you need to be successful on probation? Because I'm not just doing this because, you know, this and that. No, uh, this is deliberative. You need to understand.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it's unfortunate that these issues they come to judges and they have to kind of like make people face the music about basic things that should have been taken care of in the womb, in my opinion. About just decency, showing up on time, showing up on court on time, just, you know, treating yourselves and others with respect, um, and you have to get your butt chewed by a judge. And part two, and then I'll yield the floor, colleagues. What we also witness, because we watch a lot of court, it's not just the defendants who have their head up, you know what? It's the parents too. They have to be lectured
Right.
at by the judges
Right.
and being told you are enabling. You don't realize this, and then the parents will be making every excuse in the book
Yeah.
for their parent or their child to get. They're like, well, now I know where this problem is coming from. So I yield the floor, colleagues.
So what you just said about the judges needing to lecture the parents
Yes.
is sad as well. But this reminded me of what we saw, I believe it was yesterday, with Judge Manning. And the kid who was in front of him, or in front of her rather, on like a felony, but he was like 18 years old, ready to go to Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And mommy's rewarding him for graduating high school.
Oh man.
With the
Oh,
cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was
So
I
it's
wanted
not,
to
Just watched that.
blood
broke-
boiling.
broke
That was
and I was disappointed that Manning didn't get into that lady more. I felt like really needed to go hard at that parent, because when I talked earlier about the parenting thing and how there's a family problem, that does not necessarily equal money, because I didn't get the impression that these people were poor.
No, if that kid's
No.
going to Georgia Tech, they're
So they're
They're
doing
fine.
all
they're doing
right,
okay.
but
Technical
but
college.
but still, the parenting is crap.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so
Right.
somebody in that case with all of the benefits to go along with the potential
Yes.
is still
I'm
off
going to
track.
throw my generation a little bit under the bus here. And I'm speaking as someone who made an elective decision to not be a biological parent. My dogs are my kids.
Hell yeah.
I see a lot of people my age and maybe just a little bit older than me trying to give their kids the things I didn't have, but they're leaning into it a little too hard, and the kid gets almost whatever they demand without really having to assess a situation or earn things, or, you know, mom and dad become more like friends with the credit card than that authoritative figure. And that, I think, can also start a lot of these issues, because, you know, the kid, I want the sneakers. No, you can't have the sneakers. The kid goes steals the sneakers because there's no, they weren't taught like a
Right.
way to like earn, like, hey, you know, let's talk about you doing extra chores around the house, and then you can earn the money to go buy the sneakers kind of situation. Or like, let's
Yeah.
talk about getting a part-time job so you can earn the money to buy the sneakers
Yeah.
or the candy bar or the
Wait,
skirt or
a job, Lindsay? What's a job?
Yeah.
thing
The
I had
priv-
when I
the
was
privilege.
I
nine.
thought that was
Really?
pronounced job.
The privileged
it's a
generations.
soft J.
Yes.
Yeah.
or the parent wants to be the child's best friend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
One
a
of the
lot
biggest
of
things
that.
I hate hearing is when a parent says, you know, little Amelia, she's just my best friend.
Yeah.
No,
My little bestie.
No. I've actually I made it a point with my kids, and they didn't get it now, but a couple of them at least didn't get it then, but a couple of them at least get it now. Yeah. I made it a point to say, I'm not your friend, I'm your father. Mm-hmm. It's a different role. Now, when you're adults, that changes just a little bit. But as I'm raising you, it is my job to teach. It is my job to shepherd you through your child years as you grow and help you understand things and help you learn this world. That's a whole lot different from you being my best buddy.
Well,
but parents mess that up too. This is becoming a lot more of a discussion on how we're broken as like a society from a making good people standpoint than it is.
Well, I think that was the original point I raised when we were talking about this.
Yeah,
and this
because
idea role was
totally
like we don't have these foundations anymore.
Well, and this is what causes the burnouts and inefficiencies in the court system as well, because these judges are not trained in social issues, but they have to consider these social issues that they are not really supposed to be handling as much, because that's what the parents' job is. So unfortunately, you get burnout like Glazer, and other judges.
Judge Glazer.
Sorry, Glazer, I called you out there. But you have burnout issues, and you have judges that have to take extended breaks just because they have to be the be the executioner, but also have to keep in mind all these societal issues as well, when they really shouldn't have to do that.
I was thinking about the term free range, because like I kind of feel like I was like the last child to be grown normally and raised normally. Like I grew up old school. We had a rotary phone in the house. I had to put play clothes on after school and be home when the streetlights came on, that kind of childhood. I guess they call that free range. To me, that should just be normal. But
now it's like illegal.
Yeah, now
I was gonna say that's
I haven't
Gen
heard the
X,
term play
Bailey.
clothes in ages, but like that.
Yeah, that was how
we
we were latchkey kids. I mean, that's how we were raised.
That's right. And we were very independent. Like I remember having to walk many blocks to go catch the bus to go to the bus stop, and I'm just a little knucklehead kid, and that was just kind of normal.
Yeah,
but
I was the kind of kid that was like, when the sun came up, your butt was outside and you were playing, and you came in for lunch and you came in for dinner. Like
that's right. And you had to be outside all day. You made friends, and you had to deal with things, and you had to negotiate and like make rules and have friends, and just like whatever. You just like, so this young defendant that we saw this morning in front of Judge Boyd, who was being sentenced for quite some time. I forget he was beating up his girlfriend. And mommy kept taking him in the house with the girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
With the victim.
Yeah.
And actually threw him behind bars, even after all the character witnesses that came in.
He didn't just beat up his girlfriend, Bailey. He put a gun in her mouth and like threatened to kill her and her family. On top of the beatings. I mean, this was like domestic violence, like on steroids. Yeah, he also choked her out.
It was egregious, and he was even putting a knife under the bathroom door that she was hiding behind to protect herself.
Well, and then he like Kool-Aid manned the bathroom door. He like knocked the top half of the door down to grab her out of the bathroom. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he did.
So, and then you have all of these character witnesses that come up, and they're like, "Oh no, little Johnny, I could never believe he would do such a thing.
Yeah.
I've never seen him act like this. I've never seen him do this. I've never seen him do that," over and over. And you can just see Judge Boyd just kind of doing her.
The eyes were rolling, and
she's got her glasses on.
That's the one she asked. How did he learn this?
Her flowers over here, just kind of.
We went into overtime on this. That case went 40 minutes over, and we started about 10 minutes before. That was almost an hour-long case. And I, as all this parade of character witnesses are coming through, I said it in the chat. I go, man, all of this just for the guy to go to prison, because that's exactly what was going to happen. There isn't a program for somebody like that. Just real quick to circle back around to Dan's so-called controversial comment about family.
It's
I
controversial in some circles.
I guess it is. I would. The only thing I would say about it, though, Dan, is I think you're right, but I would add that there's a lot of reasons why that is. It's there's certainly some economics to it. We don't. It's just not feasible to have the one parent staying at home raising kids anymore. In a typical way. I mean, some people are, do work from home, or some people do have their own business that they can run out of their home. But it's a lot harder than it used to be to have the traditional, 50s style, dad goes to work and mom stays home, and and it's not, the economics of it are just not quite the same. Yeah. Here's Michelle is in here as well. She's like, no, you can't. She's saying no.
No, this isn't about parenting. Like 50s style was the answer. It's values.
I do agree with Michelle to some point. Like that generation came with their own set of troubles as well.
Right. I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm saying there's a long list of reasons why the family structure is changed. It's broken down.
I agree with you there.
The proliferation of, we talk about, all these other things that have happened, and there's so many reasons, just to break it down would be, we'd get Barbara's wish of having a 12-hour long sidebar. And the thing is that at the end of the day, all of this stuff, it does come down to what we talk about here in Dan's whole just do the next right thing. Mm-hmm. I think if we had that, I think, certainly we wouldn't necessarily need to have teachers that are now also counselors, mm-hmm. and that are also, babysitters and therapists, and, and we wouldn't have to have judges that have to take psychology courses. And again, we would have people that are more fitting into the roles that they were intended to be in.
And the issues that, like we've been discussing, the issues that our judges are facing are quite complex. I mean, we have defendants who are very young, who may be looking at pictures that are quite too inappropriate, and they're way too young. Yeah. But judges have to follow law, right? We deal with these very young defendants who really just act like, who raised you? Like, and, so that leads my other part to part two of free range is the free range kids of today are, I think, just as nefarious and dangerous, because they're doing it in private. Mommy and daddy are not necessarily looking at what Johnny might be on the phone, or how he might be acting privately outside of the home. Because, to go back to that Judge Boyd hearing, everybody was shocked about this guy's behavior. When you raise a generation of kids who their entire existence is this, and that's how they present themselves to everybody, and then, you finally let little Johnny out of the house. I read this terrible statistic that most parents don't let their children outside of their home unsupervised, like to walk down the street, at about the age of 16 years old. So just when they're about to be going into college, have they ever been allowed of their bedroom? And this is how they've been communicating with everybody. So no wonder when you send a human being out there who doesn't know how to interact with other human beings, like, no, you do not, when your buttons are pushed, no, you do not get a gun and put it in someone's mouth and, knock down the bathroom door, and that's not how you act. Yeah. But
and the ones that maybe are getting out earlier, do they have the best influences to be out there in a mass together? There was a news article a few weeks ago around here about a juvenile defendant who was already well known in the court system. He was 10.
Oh.
Yeah. in the particular part of the area that he lives in, not the most affluent area.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 10 years old and already well known in the criminal system.
So not the most affluent area. Do we know anything about his parents, Lindsay?
I would have to reference the story again. I don't remember the parents being mentioned.
Okay.
But it's a rather notorious neighborhood of my city for
Gotcha.
gang issues and crime.
I asked because, for obvious reasons, what involvement or lack of involvement do the parents have? But Grandma TCF beat me to something a couple of minutes ago. She pointed out how sometimes both parents work because they want, and want more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so this comes down to the do the next right thing piece for me. What should be more important, your parent or your child rather, or the car you drive?
Right.
What should be more important, your family having meals every day and being raised up right, or living in a huge home?
Right.
There's so many poor choices that are made by the ones that are raising the next generation that, again, they're set up for failure, and it doesn't seem to matter if they're rich or poor or whatever. You've got disengaged family, and then because you have disengaged family, it runs on to all of these other organizations, and suddenly you've got a judge who needs to be a counselor and a mental health evaluator and an expert on medications and what they should and should not take, and all of these things that they're just wholly unqualified for.
I will say, growing up, I had a very blue-collar childhood, and we didn't do a lot of big vacations. We didn't do a big Florida trip or a ski trip or a lot of these other things that I saw my classmates having, but we had dinner together every night. Sometimes my dad wasn't always there because work ran late or he got called out, but we had dinner together every night. And so just that time, that anchor, I look back on that now and that's precious. I don't know of many families that can do that now, and that's almost more precious to me than the memory of going on a big trip. I did the big trips later in life, now we're doing that. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how many of these families aren't having that because, again, mom and dad are working themselves to the bone because we have to give our kid the trip to Disney. We have to give our kid the trip to Europe. We have to give our kid the stuff that we didn't have growing up.
So that is very true. If I may, real quick, a story that just kind of butts up against that. So my own childhood, very blue collar, same thing. Okay, we weren't rich people. We weren't the poorest either. I did grow up in a neighborhood, though, that was not the richest. It was predominantly a black neighborhood. So I grew up kind of in a racially different area from my own, so different experiences and whatnot. Yeah. But when it came time to go to high school, my parents paid tuition to send me to another public school in the area because the city I was in was so bad with their school system. But the area, this other public school would actually take kids in on tuition. But it was also the richest area of where I lived, where the school was. Yeah. And they all had boats and they were all out doing things, and they'd take these vacations and they'd go skiing on the weekends in the winter and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But they ended up being some of the most broken people. One of them who was a friend of mine, he's dead after having been in prison. Another one who is not a friend of mine but a classmate is in prison for life. I know of some others who have been battling addiction and alcohol and things like that forever. There's a few that just can't build relationships with people. They're so broken, and they had money and they had all of these things to, in theory, give them advantage, but their families weren't good because the parents were always off working and doing these things to maintain that image of the city that they lived in. Yeah. And I remember talking with some of these kids, like this one kid, the one who's dead. I remember giving him a ride home one day, and we went into his house for a few minutes, and I remember him remarking that his parents hadn't been home in a week, hadn't seen him in a week.
Wow.
What?
And we were juniors at the time. I mean, he could take care of himself, but that's not the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
So he became a drug addict and a criminal, and now he's dead.
What's also crazy is that that we can almost finish each other's sentences in these examples, because I know people in my family, cousins who were spoiled, and they got everything, and their Christmases they would get like all the cool stuff, and but they are not in good places, and one of them is not with us anymore for life happens. But it got me to going to the basics with this whole topic, of like when I got in trouble, like there was consequences. Like I got grounded, like I don't know if you guys got grounded, but like there was consequences. It was like 4 days you'd be only in your room, and there was conditions to your being grounded. So like after you got home from school, you had to go into your room, you had to stay in your room. The only time you can come out is if you needed water or going to the bathroom. That was it. And you can come out for dinner, and then there was no, I remember, obviously there was no Xbox or anything like that or video games back then, but I remember I got caught using a radio. I was listening to the radio at night to fall asleep, and my stepdad heard it, and you can't have a radio.
Can't listen to that Paul Harvey. Stop it.
I was like, what? I can't even
Paul Harvey.
And now we know the rest of the story.
Hello, Americans. This is Paul Harvey. Stand by for news.
Like you are not going to have any fun whatsoever, so that when you come out of that environment,
Bailey got busted for listening to Casey Kasem.
And you go out into the world, you're not having to learn.
You understand consequences.
Yeah.
You understand it, so that when you show up to a judge, you're not telling, literally, I hate using that word, sorry, professor. You're not telling a judge that she pushed my buttons.
Yeah.
And that's why I did this. Like, oh my goodness. Oh man, I don't.
I'm also going to bring up a taboo subject, kind of piggybacking off of Bailey and Dan's comments about not being favorable. But I don't believe all people that are parents should be parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Ashley wins the internet this evening.
That is my belief, that all parents, I feel like not everyone is meant to be parents.
They're not equipped.
And they have kids. They're not ready to have kids. And this is what starts the issues with the children. Also, I feel like that breakdown in community we were talking earlier is not just for the children, it's for the parents as well. Mm-hmm. I feel like the community is supposed to try to help support the parents if they're really trying their hardest at providing for their kids, and give them the support, not give the children directly. But I feel like that is kind of passed down through that community. But if the parents are not in a good state in the first place to have children, I think that's a major issue. Not either stable mentally, financially, anything like that. If they're not stable in all aspects of their life, why would you have kids? Just to put it in, I see this all the time. I see this every day when I walk out. I see that people just either they accidentally got pregnant and they have a child, or they thought it would save their relationship, that type of thing. And I think that's a big
or you did it because that's what you do. You got married, you had kids, you just check a box, and you never really stopped to have the conversation of
exactly. And being irresponsible about it.
Was I meant to be a married person? Was I meant to be a parent? We had that conversation in my marriage about 5 years in, like we're hitting certain ages and checkpoints. Like, is this what we want to do? It's like, we live thousands of miles from our support network of families who'd be doing this essentially on our own. We both have very demanding careers that we love. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is just not the thing. Let's reevaluate in a future point where maybe we can pursue fostering or adoption, but just
exactly. And everybody has their own path. It doesn't have to just be one path, but I just feel like not all parents should be parents in the first place. But I do believe that all children are a gift. I do believe that. But I just don't believe that all parents should
be deserving of that gift.
Exactly, Dan.
Yeah. I will disagree rather with one thing you did say, Ashley, and that was where you said being financially stable first. I will tell you that I've had kids when I've had money. I've had kids when I haven't had money, and it's not easy either way. I would put that at the bottom of the list of importance. I will tell you that if you don't have money, you'll still find a way. Now, that does not mean go have 15 kids and get a welfare check off of them. That's not what I'm saying. But if you wait until you're quote unquote financially stable, even when all the other stuff is in place, you might miss your window. So
I agree with that, Dan. I think the
there
emotional
has to be a little bit of a leap of
aspect needs to
faith.
be there first.
Oh yes, absolutely. No, there's too many people that are having kids that they have no business doing it because they haven't figured themselves out yet.
Yep.
Look at all the people that we see in front of all the judges all the time. We see it daily where, well, he's 22 and he's got 3 baby mamas, which is a term I hate, by the way.
Right.
So does my mom.
So
that's one thing I think we can come away from this call with. Like, we need a better term for
the
universal
mom.
hatred of baby
parent
mama.
that you are not in a relationship with.
Yeah. So, we see these people in front of the judges and the judge is trying to counsel them on the importance of being a better parent and stuff. Well, it's again a thing that's burdened upon the system that should have been figured out a whole lot earlier.
Yeah.
Yes. The idea of responsibility and whatnot, and half the time, well, more than half the time, 90% of the time, it's going to go in one ear and out the other, and in a couple of years, you're going to see him back again.
And judges have to look at the mitigating and aggravating factors when they're doing sentencing. And, some of the mitigating might be some of the facts that I brought up, like, did they grow up with abuse and all that stuff, that young childhood trauma stuff.
Right.
Okay, judges have to consider that, and they do. But, what was that judge, because you were talking about kids, he was like, if you just kept in your pants.
Oh, that was
Judge Oakley.
Yes, Oakley.
Yeah. He's like,
Oakley.
so he's like, I'm sorry you had the childhood that you had. He's like, if I had a magic wand, I would take that all away from you. But you did what you did,
Right.
And that's just hard truth. And so I love those moments. We all love those moments, not just because it's dramatic, but because, it's like whole hard truth. It's, the little emoji we have.
Love sometimes that kid needs to hear.
And it's like, but it's also, to me, in the back of my head, I guess it's been building and building and building, and this is why I wanted to bring up this topic. It's like, it's so sad that a judge has to lay down not only the law, but be a dad and be a mentor. And, if anything, they're going a step and beyond outside of their judge duties, I would say. If they really care about somebody, you're going to give them a little bit more of your attention. If you don't care about them, I think you would just give them the bare minimum due process and get them in and out. So by him actually giving that kind of lecture, some might look at it and be like, oh, that judge is over the top, or he's kind of but then there's others that might actually look at that and be like, hey, oh my goodness, how is this even happening? And then there might be others that look at it and be like, get him, judge, get him.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a broad spectrum of this, but at the end of the day, that's a judge who's an elected official, right? Mm-hmm. And he has a job to do, and he has a docket to get through. And at the same time, he's also having to tell these young people and parents, you wouldn't be in front of me if you just paid your bill. Judge, Dad always says this. If you just came to me and asked for more time, Mike, you bring this up all the time.
Yeah.
Judge, Dad always says, if you just need more time, you could just come to me. Right. I will give you more time. But yet these knuckleheads just don't show up.
There's a lot of pride. There's a lot of pride.
It's exhausting. I'm exhausted just
Judge Oakley is one of those guys that people think he's very harsh. And I've read some comments where people are like, that's over the top, or he's playing it up for a camera. And I'm like, I think that's just who he is.
And the sad thing is,
and the sad thing is, what he's doing is he's just giving these people a dose of reality that they've never had. And there's a lot of people that make that comment and, in the comments section that obviously never had that dose either. And so they think it's harsh. But reality is, life's not fair and life is hard. And you need to hear that. And that's just, and it's, and look, it sucks. I mean, no one's going to sit here and say, yay, that's wonderful news. But it's just, that's the way it is. Judge Boyd, but I will say a lot of these judges care because Judge Boyd, she'll actually go to the graduation for some of these people that, complete these programs. And that is huge. Like, and they'll say, hey, do you want to see my certificates? And she always says yes. And she always looks at these and, because as much as we think that she can be harsh sometimes, but I think there is also a certain fairness and a certain, I think that there's a genuine care, and not every judge has that, of course, but I think there certainly is that within, and I think that's really important, and that goes back to things that Dan says a lot and that we talk about here a lot, and that is just, if people just, you do the next right thing, and you give a damn, you'd be amazed how much things can change.
Yeah. And what I have in my back of my mind is the Louisiana parole board. Yeah. So today
denied.
Yeah. So today
Goosebumps on that.
Yeah, today, I don't know what her name is, but one of the parole boardies was saying that, like, you're too old to make those kind of mistakes, that type of thing, to that guy today.
Yeah, that old lady with the black guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was like, you're too old to make that mistake. I don't know how old he was. He was like
24, I believe.
24. Yeah. I was like, what? Does she live kind of under a rock? Because there's people that are even in their 30s that haven't matured. So I don't know. That got to me today. I was like, I don't agree with how she said that. And it was quite rude and condescending too, in my opinion, but I don't know. I just thought I would bring it up, see what you guys thought.
That's a good point, Ashley. Like, shame can be a huge component of it,
Mm-hmm.
You don't come to court and ask for more help because you feel like you might get chastised and there's shame. You don't.
I mean,
I see your point.
It's a delicate thing though, because some people do need that. Look, I think, we're way off topic and yet not at the same time. But I think maybe, I think one problem that we have, and I know, again, now this is controversial, Dan. You want to see controversial? I think one problem that we have in society is that we don't shame behaviors that should be shamed. Yeah. We don't tell someone, hey, that's not right. I mean, I went to the doctor today, okay? The doctor looked at me and said, hey, man, the cows just called and said, stop eating all of us. You could stand to lose some weight. Facts, okay? You could have put it a little nicer maybe, but it's the truth. And, I respect it a lot. There's nothing wrong with telling someone, okay, what you're thinking here is, or how you're behaving is wrong. And at 24, and again, I get 24, you are, look, especially as dudes, dudes are immature. Let's just face it. Yeah. They're probably still immature at 70. Yeah. But
we've seen that actually in Judge Boyd's court this week.
We did, yes. But that said, at 24, you do also know the difference between right and wrong.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people want to make excuses. Hey, he's 18. Hey, he's 19. And to a degree, that's acceptable. But you still know the difference between right and wrong.
That's right.
Yeah. when you put it that way, Michael, I guess so. I don't know. I think it's the way she said it that kind of.
Oh no, she was absolutely the way
jerk.
she said it was absolutely old lady talking down, and it was. I don't think it was meant in a constructive way.
No, I don't
at
think
all.
so either. There's no point.
But at the same time, I do think that somebody in that young man's life, I'm starting to talk like somebody in that young man's life ought to have said to that boy, no, somebody ought to have said, hey, straighten up, man. What are you doing? Like, I mean, it's okay to say that to people. It's okay. It's okay to call someone a dumbass. Michelle is absolutely right.
I think this is more. I think this is more like a 2-hour conversation because we can go.
Unless you were calling me a dumbass, which is also true, but it's
well, we can always pick up where we left off on Thursday if you want.
Yes,
we can discuss that after the fact here, but
it
is about time to wrap it up. Per our normal arrangement, I don't think we have solved anything.
No,
but I do think we have pretty much agreed that the root cause of so much of our problems seems to be family and making good people. Would we all kind of agree on that? I think.
Yeah, I would say, Dan, this is one of the times. This is one of the times where we may not have solved it, but I think we've found the root, or at least one of the roots of the problem. And I think that's more than we can say for some of the episodes. But I think this is one where solved, no, because the problem's still going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
But maybe a path to a solution, a path. I think we've certainly found that, or at least shine some light on it. Yes.
Well, we'll talk about it after the show, but maybe Thursday is now that we've identified the problem. How in the world do we fix it?
I have a whole notes on that.
Ooh,
so.
part two.
Part
could be
two.
Interesting.
A 2-part special sidebar.
Bailey, final thoughts?
I meant to do this on the last show. I want to thank the fans out there, those who are listening right now, inviting us into your living rooms, on your television sets, on your phones, in your ear pods, on your commute. It's very humbling when I come back to Sidebar and I see that, X number of people have watched, and it's really, I don't know, it's flattering and just awesome. So I really wanted to give a great shout out to everybody who supports us and watches us and invites us. And, there's so much entertainment out there, but you guys come in and listen to us not solve anything for an hour. And I hope you enjoy, hope you learned something, got some laughs. And, at least I think for us, we demonstrate how rhetoric is supposed to be done, and disagreements and argument is made. And it's absolutely fun every time we're on Sidebar. So I am very humbled and thankful to be here. So I wanted to share that with the fans and also with my colleagues. So thank you all very much.
Very well said, Bailey, and thank you to Barbara for the $2 for acknowledging that
Yes.
Bailey made it through the entire show without saying bad words.
I guess that means I'm allowed to actually say 2 of them today, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll
Bank
save
them
it
for tomorrow.
Yeah, just put it in the bank, Bailey. Just bank that.
Michael?
These are difficult issues. I'm glad that we're able to have these conversations and do so civilly, even if they are so-called controversial topics. I really appreciate that, and I want to thank all 7 of us for being here tonight. Yes, the 5 you see on your screen, plus Michelle, plus Freya for joining in on via the shoulder earlier. So I'm glad we can have this massive community, this growing panel.
It does keep getting bigger. Ashley?
I think societal issues are the hardest things to solve. That's just because there's so many people that make up a society. And there's not a good answer to it, unfortunately. But I'm glad we addressed that it does start with the household and the family and the children at a young age. I think that a lot of children deserve more than what they're getting in their childhood. And I think parents, if you go out of your way and make your child feel loved and cared for and safe, I think that goes a long way in for the rest of their lives. You just don't realize it, but it does. So I just want to put that out there, and thank you so much for watching as well. I don't know, what is this episode 5? What is
19.
this episode?
19.
So
Hey, 19.
19 episodes ago, I would not have imagined me doing this. I am not a talker. I am not a debater. I like to keep my thoughts to myself a lot, but you guys have stuck with me, and I appreciate it so much. So thank you so much, viewers, and thank you so much for this panel.
Well said. Lindsay.
A judge can be a wonderful figure in a young person's life. You just hope it's as a professional mentor and not in a litigative situation. It's kind of a thought I come to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that,
Well
you know,
said.
it takes a community, but it also takes a home. And
Yes.
I think I want to echo my panel mates. I'm a recent add to the cast of Sidebar, but this is an honor and a privilege. And if you'd have told me a year ago when I started watching court YouTube that one of the creators would give me a microphone and let me run my mouth on YouTube for an hour twice a week, I wouldn't have believed you. But I'm beyond thrilled to be here. And thank you to our fans, our paid supporters, mods, everyone lighting up the chat tonight. This is a highlight of my week and an honor.
Well, let me just finish with this. If you had told the creator of this channel a year ago that this channel would be a thing, he would have laughed in your face. Because the story of this channel is just a little over a year ago. Our 1 year anniversary for this channel will be Friday. And it was only a couple of weeks prior to that all of a sudden YouTube started pushing me courtroom videos as I was doing my other work. And I've toyed around with YouTube doing some other things, but I looked at that and thought, you know what, I can bring a different perspective to that. And here we are a year later, and we have this wonderful panel show where the five of us are getting together and talking, and we've got this wonderful community in the chat and all of these members, and everybody's so supportive and everything else. And all I can say is, who would have thunk it? Because when I entered October of last year, this was not on my bingo card, but I saw this and I'm like, I want to see what I can do. And I put up a couple of videos, and within the first 48 hours, I was approaching 1,000 subs, and I was like, okay, maybe we've got something here. And you know what? We do. What we've got is a great community. So thanks to you guys for chatting with me every Tuesday and Thursday, and thanks to all of you out there in the chat for joining us. So I like it so much. Let's do this again Thursday. We'll get
Sounds
together.
good.
8 p.m.
Yes.
Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, for a morning show that will have a slightly different look. Tune in to see what's going on.
It's also the 150th live, is it not, Dan?
It is also the 150th live,
Oh my
and it will look like no live we've done before. So be
For
sure
better
to check
or
that
worse.
out. We shall see. And 45 minutes early for channel members. So be sure to join us then. In the meantime, guys, have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. God bless.
See ya.
Bye.